This is a special meeting by the statewide ACC. There's Donna. And we're here to discuss a couple of issues. One, we received a case from, I believe, the Department of Health rather late. If we outcome of this call might determine that we need to have another special meeting to hear it, because the complaint occurred on August 18th of 2025, which means we need to hear it by August 19th of this year. The issue at hand today has to do with jurisdiction, as it pertains to whether or not the member of the public was involved in this situation. There was an incident involving a employee nurse at the medical facility and the law enforcement officer for the Department of Health. And I've read the emails from Matt and Kendall. They are leaning toward that this should be in these incidences that the employee with these agencies do not come under the category of a member of the public. And I wanted to socialize the issue with the other members. So Donna, Judge Mitchell, Nora, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, well, as I've read it, obviously, even in terms of the policy violated, it was in adherence to the agencies or the institutions' policies for staff and how they interact with each other. The officer never engaged with the patient, who would have been a member of the public. And it was his non-compliance in assisting another staff person and dealing with an aggressive situation with a patient.
Well,
See it as the staff person, him not assisting them, that was a violation of the agency policy and how they interact as staff, but never interacted with the actual person who would have been a member of our group. If he had done something to the other staff person, I could even probably consider it. But the issue was that he never did his function as an employee in that situation. So there was no violation against any member of the public. And as I consider it an HR issue, not an issue for ACC.
when I read the opinions or the letters from the attorneys, they made a note that the legislature, in creating the statute, delineated public and staff, saying that there's a distinction between suggesting a distinction between the two. The staff member is not a member of the public, or at least as defined by how the legislature wrote the legislation. So it would seem to me that that person is not covered by the process. The ACC has no jurisdiction. It would be within the Internal Affairs Department of process for resolution.
So I have to say, I read it like the judge did. And I started out by reading the email exchanges, kind of the legal argument that Kendall put forth and that Matt put forth. And it struck me as very persuasive that they're reporting to the same kind of agency. And so they're both employees and should be covered by whatever employment law covers them. It's also the same kind of like language, obviously, that's in that particular rule about conduct and those kind of things that delineates members of the public and staff separately. I think when I then read the actual file, I saw where the I think the perception can come from, because it seems like the staff doesn't understand they're all part of the same team. It's like nobody seems to think they're part of the same team, but that's an employment problem that I don't feel like we can remedy that problem. So my sense is the same, that we don't have jurisdiction.
I really focused my decision on the investigative report and the policy that was cited that was specific to how they interact as staff, and particularly dealing with an emergency situation, which he clearly violated. So internally, from an HR position, it's something that they are well within their means to be able to address. There was no violation against any member of the public, and so I just didn't take it any further than that.
Right. I just want to make sure, and Matt and Kendall, that in the definitions where it discusses at the hospital employees, nurses, and general members of the public, that you don't believe that they would be mutually exclusive. Because I can think of, and one of the things I was thinking was the intent here of the legislation was to have a civilian committee review allegations, particularly of use of force. And, is it the intent of the legislation? And I don't know what the original intents were, that these type of situations would be excluded. And I also want to make sure that we consider, and if we are going to take the interpretation that an employee, be a nurse at an institution, is not a member of the public, it is only when I think it was only if they were on duty. So let's say that nurse wasn't on duty, an incident occurred that involved a law enforcement officer. In that situation, would we have jurisdiction?
Okay, you're posing a hypothetical there, sort of, Bob.
Yeah.
So if we kind of take it apart and look at it, you said that the nurse is not on duty. Are you suggesting that she is still in that confined space?
Yeah, let's say she's punched out, she's on her way home, and there's an incident that involved a law enforcement officer. And I might be splitting hairs here, but just to make sure we understand, I mean, that nurse can transition to be a member of the public if she was not on duty.
Yes, certainly. I think that is absolutely reasonable interpretation. It would concern me if it did not translate to a situation where she's outside of the secure white B unit or whatever secure ward it might be. Whatever the name of it is, it doesn't matter. But if she's clocking out, she's still going to be considered in the process of leaving her place of work. If something occurs out on the sidewalk in front of a facility, it occurs in the parking lot, and there's some interaction or exchange or encounter between her and a law enforcement officer, then I think that is a different set of circumstances. But that's not what we're dealing with here.
Also have to draw the distinction between an MDH police officer and any other law enforcement officer. We're not suggesting that, generally speaking, employees of this organization are not members of the public. Given this particular circumstance, she's not a member of the public. So for instance, most agencies will have a policy on workplace violence. So let's say she's off duty, she's clocked out, she drives down the street, she's shaken up by this incident that happened, so she stops to get a drink in her local bar. And who saunters in but this very same police officer, and they get into an argument, right? And maybe there's some shoving or whatever. I think that would still suggest that she's not a member of the public to that police officer, because they are co-workers who had an on-the-job issue that carried beyond the end of their workday. So it's important to distinguish between this law enforcement officer or an MDH law enforcement officer and any other law enforcement officer. But the case would be very fact dependent. And just like we did here, we'd have to look at the policy that they said applies, how they intended to apply it. And do we think, or do you think it is an employment issue versus a police officer versus a civilian member of the public issue? So I don't think all of that to say, Bob, and to the group, that I don't think you should take our input in this particular case and try to make a new bright line rule. I think each case we'd have to do this similar analysis to see. But the further away she is from her work, the more likely it is that she might be a member of the public for purposes of a negative interaction with a police officer.
This seems, I agree with that. This seems to be a case where he failed just simply to respond at all. But there may be fact patterns that could be crafted or could occur where there was a different set of facts on the job, in the course of the job, where his interaction with a member of the with a fellow employee or staff member could justify our intervention. But we don't have that here.
Yeah.
And
In this
because we don't have
situation,
it here, I would put no jurisdiction.
Okay. And Rodney has joined us, and Rodney, I don't know if you care to chime in or give your opinion. So far, it appears that the consensus is that this would not be in our jurisdiction because the nurse is an employee of the Department of Health and would not be covered under the policies as written by the hospital. Rodney, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. So I agree with the consensus that she's not a member of the public, being that she's an employee.
Okay.
And due to what happened during the interaction after reading the case.
But even, I just want to reiterate, even in their policy that was cited, it talks about the behavior of any staff person on or off duty. And so if they're hospital staff and they're engaging or interacting, there is an expectation or a standard that is expected of them on or off duty. But in this situation, all of them are on duty, and there's an expectation around how they were expected to facilitate the situation, considering it was a crisis. And he simply neglected to do his duty.
Right.
Which is a violation of their internal policy, which they have absolute means to be able to address.
Can I get, has everybody felt that we've had enough discussion and get a motion to reply to the agency notifying them that this is not within our jurisdiction and that it should be handled internally as a internal HR or employment matter?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Does anybody else have anything they need to add or say?
Nope.
No. Carrie, can you work with Kendall to get something together?
Yep. We will
so-
draft the letter. I'll send it to you to review,
Yeah.
and then you'll get it over to them.
Yeah, I'll be back home late Saturday, so I can look at it Sunday.
It may not be that quick. We'll see. We might be able to get it done tomorrow, but we have a revocation hearing on Monday and Tuesday, so it very possibly be maybe Wednesday.
I'm going to have my grandsons next week, so I might be not in my mind to be able to understand anything after a couple of days.
It'll give you a good excuse to take a break.
Very good.
All right, I'll get it over to you. I'll text you or call you when we have it done and send it to you.
Great. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn.
And I
All in
second.
favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, thanks, everybody.